All right, you guys, we are live with a whole new episode, and I've been so excited for a couple of weeks now since I knew that Vanessa agreed to come on to record this episode. So thank you, Vanessa, for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to share this story.
I know it's gonna be such a poignant story too. So
hmm
just
Yeah.
before we even dive into everything, it's going to be about a poltergeist situation. Just the story about that spirit is just so moving that I'm so touched that you're sharing the story with us and agreed to do this because it just shows about the compassion we can hold also for spirits. You don't just need to be afraid of them, including
Yeah.
poltergeists, because they all have their little stories to share. But why don't you share with us, because you already shared with me before that you have this gift already since childhood that you perceive spirits. Can you share a bit more about how it started or what you saw actually as a child?
Yeah. I always kind of say I was born awakened, but I've always kind of pushed everything down. So that was kind of my struggle, I guess. But I've always sensed energies. I was very intuitive, empathic as a child. One of my earliest memories was being like 3 years old, and I was in bed and I had a nightlight on, and I remember opening my eyes, and there was this blonde woman with short blonde, very blonde hair, blue eyes, and she was just sitting at the edge of my bed just staring at me and smiling. And I remember not knowing what to do with that, so I remember turning over and I was just a little bit afraid. So that was kind of my first foray into, wow, there's someone in my room that
Oh,
doesn't really belong here, but it didn't feel negative. It felt like a very peaceful energy. It was startling, I guess, as a child.
and you still
And
remember that when you were 2 years old?
I still remember it. Yeah.
That's wild.
Still remember, I can still see her face. And she actually showed up again in one of my dreams when I was in third grade. I was going through a lot at home. My dad had cancer. And so there was a lot of turmoil, and I was having a hard time coping with that. And so she actually showed up in my dream. And I can still
Wow.
remember the dream because I've always been very connected to my dreams. I remember them, and I always say I do more living in the dream world than I do here in the 3D. But she showed up and she was very comforting and peaceful. So I don't know if she was an angelic presence that made
Hmm.
herself available to me, but it was very calming, and it was something I very much needed at that point in time.
That's
And
so beautiful.
um,
So, wow.
yeah. And then throughout the years, as I've gotten older, it's become a little bit more pronounced because I'm accepting of it. My grandfather passed away when I was 21 years old, and I was in my grandma's house, and I kept hearing water running.
Oh,
And it was my mom, my grandma, and myself. And I said, Grandma, I hear, is somebody running a faucet? Or I thought maybe the bathroom faucet was running. She said, No, there's no one here. And I was stumped because I kept hearing water pressure. And I thought, oh, she must have landscapers out in the backyard, and that's the hose going, and maybe she just forgot. And I kept staring out the kitchen window, and somehow I tracked the house. There were no windows, and I followed along this pathway of what somebody would be taking. I looked out the window on the far right side, and I saw my grandfather.
oh,
I actually saw him, and I was so stunned. And
wow.
he was someone who always, they didn't have a sprinkler system or anything. So he would be outside watering the lawn manually with a hose. So that's what I was hearing. But he was, of course, passed on. And I thought, so he's still here because my grandma was in the home by herself.
Oh
And
my
we were
God, that's
trying to,
beautiful.
yeah, we were trying to get her to move. This house is very large. We worry about your safety. And so I thought, well, he's still here. He's still somehow doing his part, to keep up the lawn and stuff. And I was in awe. That was the first time I actually saw
Mm.
someone. But I've been in hotel rooms. I've been awakened at like 4 in the morning. Someone was calling me Aaron. Um,
Oh my
yeah,
God. Creepy.
yeah, it was so loud. It was a female, and she was Aaron, Aaron. And I'm, groggy. It always happens at like 3, 4 in the morning when I'm groggy.
Yeah.
I woke up and I started freaking out, and I saw this kind of apparition starting to appear, and I,
Oh.
stumbling for the light, and I said, no, 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 I was yelling, I'm not Aaron. I'm not Aaron. I'm sorry. I don't know who you think I am, but I'm not. So, please go, in peace and leave me. So I've had a lot of startling
Yeah.
instances. And there was one that actually I think it came in handy, sensing this energy. This was in 2014. I had moved to Central California, the coast, for my first nursing job.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking for housing, and it was a very tight housing market for renters. And I was living in a hotel at the time, going to work, and was like, this is getting very expensive. I need to find a place.
Right.
So I went to the ads and I found a nice home. So I went out there. It was a house, beautiful house, very modern for the area, updated. It was sitting kind of in a field, and the field was very much overgrown. So as I was driving out, I kind of went, well, I don't know about this, but it's a beautiful home. I'm looking for a space. And when I walked right into the house, there was a woman there who lived there with her dog, and she was the one renting the room. And right when I walked through the door, I felt this tsunami wave of grief and
Oh
sadness.
gosh.
Just, I mean, it took my breath away. And I kind of stood there and I just went, ooh, this is heavy, very heavy
Wow.
energy. And so we're walking through the home, and it was beautiful. I thought this would be ideal. So I kept trying to suppress it and go, no, just ignore the energy. This is a nice place. And the woman was telling me that she was renting the room to a lady who, in the middle of the night, the previous night, moved out.
Oh,
All of a sudden, grabbed her stuff and moved out. And so this woman who's renting the room was just beside herself. She said, I don't know what happened. Out of nowhere, she just packed up and moved. And
wow.
that kind of was a little alarming. My antenna went up and I'm thinking, that's odd. But it was a beautiful space. She had a guy there shampooing the carpets. I guess she needed to rent the room out ASAP. So we made our way to the kitchen and I started asking questions. I said, so do you own this home? Who owns this home? Are you renting? And she said, no, I'm renting from the school district owns the home. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, the local school district owns the home. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
I didn't know they had properties to generate income. And she said, yeah, that's what they do. And she said, I guess the previous owner, she said, this used to be a flower farm. And there are a lot of flower farms in that area. So
Oh.
that's where it was on the field and it was overgrown. So it actually was a flower farm at one point. And she said a family lived here
Hmm.
and they had children. Something happened with pesticides and it went into the groundwater and the children developed cancer.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And right then and there, it all clicked for me, that
Yes.
tsunami wave of grief. And I just thought, that's it. That's what I was feeling. There is such a morose sadness in this home.
Oh gosh.
And I don't know, the woman who was renting, who ran out in the middle of the night. I kind of wonder if something transpired that scared her to where
Probably.
she just, yeah.
Oh my
So I
goodness.
thanked her for her time and I went ahead and passed on the property because I just
Yeah.
thought, oh, this would not be a good thing.
That
But
is so
it was a beautiful
interesting and
home.
sad. Wow.
I don't know if it was the children's spirit that was still there. I tend to think children just move on, but maybe it was kind of a poltergeist, just an energetic culmination, because I know homes absorb energies
They
of just
do.
the grief that they were going through at the time. Perhaps the children passed away in that home. It was really heavy. And yeah,
Oh, so you beautifully described everything you've experienced, and I can clearly see you have what we call the clairs, all of them, clair audio.
yeah,
You can hear
yeah,
spirit, you can feel it, you can feel the energy of what they went through, like the grief. You can also see them. Some people can
yeah.
also smell. So I don't know if you ever smelled.
I do. I'll
You do
smell
also that one, yes.
coffee or cigarettes. I'm not a smoker. There's no smoking around here, but every now and then I'll get a whiff of cigarette
Yeah,
smoke. And it's like, where is that coming from? Yeah, or bubble
true.
gum. Sometimes
Yeah.
just
Oh my
I can
goodness.
taste. I can taste bubble gum at times or
Yeah.
popcorn. Things I don't eat, but
That's incredible. So actually,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
how I got into space clearing. I was living in Bangkok and I was just studying energy healing that had nothing to do with space clearing, but books just came flying off my shelf at night. So I knew there must be some sort of poltergeist.
Oh, that
And
must have been
I was
terrifying.
so scared. And then, like you, I heard my name, but in a nasty voice. So the spirit knew my name and it just said, Lais,
Oh, wow.
Lais. And then I freaked out.
Oh, wow. It is
Yeah.
scary. It's very jolting and you don't feel safe in your space.
No,
That's the part.
exactly.
I
I
mean,
didn't feel safe, but I also didn't feel like moving away from that mansion. It had everything I needed in there, so I was no way.
yeah.
And I knew the teacher I was studying with, he had all these courses with space clearers. So I thought, let's do that first and see if I can remove that thing. And that's how I accidentally stumbled upon space clearing.
Well, I'm sorry for what you went through, but I'm glad you
Yeah.
did because you have an incredible gift to share and you share it and you help many people with it. And it's
Yeah, that's how it started. And I was like, you know what? We don't even need to be afraid because they all have a story to share. And I'm always just so keen to hear the story. And that's how you can help them in the end to step into the light.
yeah, that is
Wow.
true.
So you had quite some experiences there.
Definitely. Yes. So that's why
Ah,
when this came into my life, I went, oh no.
yeah, let's dive into this. So that's, I think, how we met because then you emailed and you asked for a free
hmm
assessment and you put in the email you bought a Victrola, which I had to Google what that is.
Yes, yes. So I purchased an antique Victrola that was made in 1910. It was manufactured. And I love music from that era. I love all music, but somehow that era, the early 1900s, all the way through like 1930, it's soothing to me. It feels like home. I think I must have had a past life,
Yeah,
in that
sounds
era.
like
So
it.
I just loved it, and I've always wanted a Victrola. And they're a little bit pricey. They're For those that don't know, they're about 4 feet tall. It's
Mm,
very heavy. It's like a piece of furniture, really, for being a
yeah.
record player, an early Model A record player.
Is it then a
Um,
gramophone or not at all? Because that's what I thought it
it is.
was.
It's a gramophone. Yes, it's on a
Okay.
stand, and the Victrola is the. I think it's the brand name.
It's the brand, yes. And I
Yeah,
when I Googled, I think it was even American brand. It wasn't
it
European or
is.
anything, but yeah.
Yes.
So I got this email said there's a Victrola here from 1910 or so. Do you want to describe the reasons why you even reached out, asked for the free assessment, what you went through since the Victrola came into your house?
Yes. So I actually, the side note, I purchased it online, so sight unseen. I never saw it.
Oh, wow.
So I rolled the dice, and it was pretty expensive for me. And the antique shop is located in Solvang, California, which
Oh,
is from the Central Coast area. And I'm actually on my dad's side Danish, and Solvang is a Danish town here in California.
how
All
interesting.
100% Danish. Yes, they have all
Wow.
sorts of buildings. You feel like I've never been to Denmark, but it looks very much like the photos of Denmark, the way everything was
Wow. I had
described.
no
So,
clue. There's so many Danish down there.
yeah, yeah, there's little enclaves. So I've been there before. And so when I went online, typed in Victrola, and lo and behold, this antique shop in Solvang popped up. And I thought, well, they're relatively local. I'm in Northern California, and they can have people actually deliver it. So that would be nice because this is not something that you can really ship
Very.
through FedEx or anything. So I bought it sight unseen. I put it on layaway for a few months. And so on January 14th, it was delivered to me.
Mm,
And I was so excited. I immediately saged it because I've
mm.
had past experiences with items that I've brought into the home, and I put on the records and I was just kind of dancing around. I felt so happy that I finally had this beautiful item that just connected me to another life.
Yes, I can see
And
that.
it was incredible. I was just over the moon. And it came with some albums.
Mm.
And I also hopped on eBay and I was purchasing other albums too. I have some favorite singers from that era that I was able to find albums. And in the first week that I had it, I had a really kind of bad dream slash nightmare of sorts. And I don't usually have bad dreams or nightmares. I can't remember exactly what it was, but at the end, it was me going to the Victrola, picking up some sort of a tray and moving it, and carved into the top in the mahogany wood was the letter A.
Mm.
And it was very aggressive, roughly carved. It looked like someone carved it in anger. And I remember waking up right when I saw that letter A, and I was very uneasy. And I thought, okay, this feels very possessive, like someone is letting me know this is mine, not yours. And their
Mm-hmm.
name must start with an A. So that was kind of my first clue. I still get chills when I think about it. So I started to sense this presence more and more. It was getting stronger and stronger, to the point where I normally I don't have spirits come into my room. Somehow my room is off limits, but this
Mm-hmm.
one was coming into my bedroom. I could sense.
Gosh.
And so I was lighting a candle every night. I bought, some tea lights that go for 6 hours. So before bed, I would light a candle. I would ask my angels, my guides, benevolent light beings, please protect me as I am
Mm-hmm.
sleeping. Please protect everyone in the home, my dog, keep us safe and free from harm. It was like a nightlight of sorts, because I was a little scared.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily I had the candle going. And a couple nights after that dream, I got up to use the bathroom at about 4 a.m. And I came back to my room and I heard a very loud bang. It sounded like someone took a heavy book and slammed it down onto a table. And
Gosh.
it reverberated because our house is open floor plan. And I knew it came from the room where the Victrola is
Oh,
housed, in
gosh.
the main room.
Yeah.
And I stopped in my tracks, and I was waiting for everybody else in the house to turn on their light, come out of the room. What was that? It was so loud, and nobody did. So the next day, I asked everyone, I live with two other people, and I said, did you guys hear a loud bang last night at about 4 a.m.? It reverberated through the entire house. No one heard it. No,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear it. And they're light sleepers. They would have. And I thought, okay, this is getting a little bit more interesting slash creepier. And the pinnacle of reaching out to you that kind of did it for me was, I was home alone one day with my dog in the house, no other people. And I was in the kitchen cooking, and I heard a loud bang. It sounded like a couple of bangs. It sounded like someone was taking a battering ram to my front door.
Oh
It
my
was
God.
super loud, super scary. I stopped what I was doing, ran down the hallway to look at the front door. I didn't go near it. And I'm sitting there just kind of like, is somebody trying to break in?
Oh my
What is this?
God.
And then I look at the Victrola and I'm like thinking, no, this is to do with this Victrola, the spirit. So the loud bangs were coming. My dog was running up and down the hallway, just very distressed, which is unlike her. She never
Jesus.
does that.
Yeah.
And I'm next to the Victrola is the TV stand, and I have some books underneath. And I walked over, and there were books that were just kind of fell off the shelf. Someone pushed them.
Yeah.
And those books have been there for years. Nobody, they
Mhm.
didn't do it on their own. And I was at this point terrified out of my wits. And all of a sudden, as I'm standing there, my whole spine was just tingling. Now, I've
Oh
had,
gosh.
tingly spine, your sixth sense. This I've never experienced before. It was almost paralyzing how
Wow.
this was just coming through. I mean, I imagine if I could see him, he was probably like right in my face yelling at me.
Oh
That's
gosh.
how the energy felt. And I was terrified. I was ready to grab my dog and literally just run out of the house, because I didn't know what was happening. Because I've never dealt with a spirit who crossed over into the physical world of moving things and
Yes.
loud bangs. I've never experienced that before. So that was terrifying. So everyone came back home. I told them about it. And as we were standing in the hallway and I'm sharing this, the smoke alarm went off
My
twice.
God.
There was no reason for it to go off. It wasn't a test chirp. It was a full-on siren twice, and we all jumped. So it was meant to scare us, you
Yes.
know. And at that point I said, okay, I need to get a professional in here. I need some help. Sage is not going to remove this spirit, whatever it is. This is strong. So
Oh
that's when I
gosh.
was just kind of hopeless, and I didn't know what to do. So I was looking online, and you think, well, you need someone to come to the house. And so then I found you, and I was like, oh my gosh, she does it through distance. And
Mhm.
I felt drawn. And so that's when I contacted you with this haunted
Wow.
antique Victrola.
Yeah, so that's how I got the email with the assessment request. And then right away, as I connected, well, first I Googled what is a Victrola, so I have an understanding. And then I did, and I connected to that instrument. And right away, I had this angry, very frustrated male spirit that was just running around and like super agitated and just telling it's
Mm,
mine, it's mine. And they aren't supposed to move it around all the time. And he was just so attached to that thing. It was like incredible. It's like, this is mine, this is mine. Nobody's supposed to touch it. And I think for the first assessment, that was it, what I received in terms of information. I came back to you and I said, yeah, indeed, there's this angry spirit here that is very. Oh, and I also got the information that he was into music. He was playing in an orchestra before. Yeah, and I shared that and I said, because I had no idea how expensive these gramophones are, I said, I don't know if like a whole full space clearing is like worth it.
yes.
But you shared already that, it's quite an antique thing and that you spend more than you normally would. So
Hmm.
I guess you had to add on top now the cost of the space clearing.
I did. I was at that point before I had reached out to you. I thought, what am I going to do with this? I can't keep this in the
Yeah,
house. I can't live like this.
yeah.
Do I donate it and just take the tax write off? Or, I'm always leery about selling things that have something
Mhm.
attached. I feel like it's unethical. But yeah, I was kind of at a loss and I was like, no, this is mine. I I'm gonna keep
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
was, well, happy, but also surprised to hear, okay, she must really like the gramophone, this Victrola,
Yes.
and you went ahead and booked it. And so I was excited to go into the story and to get more information once I work with the spirit. And yeah, that's when it came out that his name was Anton. He was from Austria. And that's the A you had
The
seen.
A.
And he was so sad. He shared with me that he had Jewish ancestry, that he grew up in the time of Nazi Germany and the Holocaust, and they had to flee and came to the States. And so he lost his ancestral place where he grew up. He was missing that
Mhm.
terribly. Yeah, all the trauma from what happened and seeing what was
Mhm.
happening in Germany while he was in the States as well. And music was the one thing that was healing him continuously, like the music and this Victrola and his orchestra, that those were the things that helped him heal, he told
Mhm.
me. And so it's his and he wants this for him and he doesn't want to share it. At that point, you had already shared a beautiful message with me that you wanted me to pass on to him so
Mhm.
that he would be willing to step into the light. Do you remember what that was?
Yes, I empathize. I said I understand your need, your desire, and how this was healing for you. I just wanted you to relay to him that I would take very good care of it. I take very good care of my things. I will cherish it. I will treasure it. I will always make sure it's well cared for. And when it's my time to go, I will make sure that I have plans in place that it goes to someone else who will take care of it. I just wanted him to know that it's safe, it's not going to be mistreated. Yeah, I know how much it means to you, and I will carry that on.
Yeah, and
So I
that
was hoping
was,
that that would help.
yeah, absolutely. It was exactly what he had to hear. And
Mm,
that really calmed him down a lot, that he built up
okay.
this trust with you. And then I sent him a lot of healing for what happened before he even came to the US, all his traumas, his big trauma there. And then finally he did step into the light and he was all soft and actually looking forward. I asked for his ancestors to come and pick him up, and they did, and he went quite happy then. Then I connected with you again and I shared all this backstory that I didn't know yet about him being Jewish and escaping the Holocaust and all of that. And
Mhm.
that's when I thought, wow, the story can't even get more incredible, but it did. That's when you shared about your ancestral story, and I'll let you share what you're willing to share with us.
Yes, definitely. So my mom's mother is from Germany, and my mom was actually born in Germany as well. They both came to the United States in 1958 when my mom was 8 years old. But my grandmother was of Polish Jewish ancestry, and she, of course, was in Germany at the time of the rise of
Mhm.
Nazis. And she had three daughters, and she was married to a German man, of course.
Mhm.
And he ended up joining the Nazi party, and he turned her in to the Gestapo. And
Yes.
they came one day and they took her three daughters, my mom's half sisters, away from her. And they took my grandmother and they interned her in a concentration camp, a work camp. So that was an immense amount of trauma for her. My grandmother passed away in 1972, so I never met her. I've
Right.
always sensed her around me energetically. I have talked to her through mediums, but I never physically met her, got to speak to her. A lot of that trauma, she ended up getting released from the camp. She had no idea where her three daughters were. Frankfurt was completely bombed out. When she came out of the camp, she didn't know where to go. She couldn't find anybody. Homes were gone. So she, I imagine, had an immense amount of trauma from that. She ended up having my mother with a serviceman from the US. And long story short, they ended up coming to America and becoming naturalized citizens. My mom said my grandmother never talked about her time in the camp. My mom overheard her once speaking about how your heads were shaved and there was a huge lice outbreak. They were always starving, and
oh gosh,
just the horrors you can imagine. And so that was very poignant. That was a poignant connection here. I don't identify as Jewish. I don't really know much about it. We do eat the food. My mom grew up with the food, but my grandmother would never own up to being Jewish or having Jewish ancestry for obvious reasons.
Yeah, trauma, of course.
Yeah, so she did end up finding her three daughters because she married a serviceman. So they were in Germany at points, and she was always looking for them. And she did end up tracking them down as adults.
Oh gosh.
And yeah, she reconnected, and we ended up going, my mom, my dad, and I, to Germany in 1990.
Wow.
In the holidays. My mom's half sister Renata she had leukemia, and she was looking for a donor. She was at the tail end of her journey with that. So it was kind of a way for my mom to just say goodbye. So they told us all the stories. My mom's other sister, Rosie, they took us to places and told us stories about how they were ripped away from their mom. And, we went here during the bombing raids because mom didn't want to be in a house. So we were under a bridge, just all sorts. And I'm 10 years old and I'm hearing all of this. And it was pretty intense. And then my dad is a huge World War II buff. So he wanted to go and see Dachau, which is a concentration camp that is still standing today. And so at 10 years old, I'm going to this whole concentration camp. I would consider it one of, a life turning moment. Right when we walked in, even at that age, the energy was just overwhelming. It was horrific. I was just kind of walking around in a daze, I was kind of on my own because you can walk around the grounds. And it was so heavy. I had a hard time even moving my feet because the energy was so dense.
Right.
And, I remember being in the shower rooms, and at that age, I had that realization that they didn't actually believe that they were going to be in the shower room to shower. They knew that it was going to be a gas chamber.
Yeah.
And that was a stunning realization at that age for me, because I could feel the fear, the panic, everything. It was very much a turning point and gave me a whole perspective of what actually went on there, and not just seeing it in the books or on TV, but actually feeling it was pretty horrific.
Yeah, and that's how I then remembered one of the very first things that I did. And I don't know if the listeners know, but I'm half German. I'm half Brazilian, half German. Obviously, I grew up in Germany, and that's in school. It was one of the first things we learn as children, what happened in Germany, the whole Holocaust story. And so, of course, I was traumatized to hear that my German ancestry was living through that. And thanks God they were no Nazis, but they were also none of the Germans. Like, I don't know if you watched the movie Schindler's List. They certainly were none of those Germans who were helping Jewish people. So I was just so traumatized about all of this. And as soon as I knew about space clearing, that you could do it by a distance, my mom, who's Brazilian, and we found a couple of other healers, and we just built a team. And we went through so many of those concentration camps, including Auschwitz, which is also one of the big ones.
Yeah.
And we started transcending those spirits and sending them to the light, and just also removing that awful, awful energy of starvation and death and trauma. And I just
Yeah.
remember we were all crying while we were doing this because it was so intense. And of course it took ages because there are so many concentration camps.
Yes.
So I can't even imagine what it must have been like as a 10-year-old to walk into one of these things. Like I never dared to even go near. That's intense.
It was very intense, and my parents, were just, they didn't pick up on that, and so it was like, well, hurry up, keep walking, and it's like I'm struggling to process all of this. It's just heavy, and yeah, so it was definitely gives you a perspective. But thank you for sending all of that healing to you and your group.
Imagine me then talking to Anton, and because I was feeling, oh my God, poor guy. Now I'm here, half German and grew up in Germany. I hope you even talk to me. I feel so
Oh
bad.
no.
But I said, I'm so
No, it's
sorry.
not all Germans.
I did lots of ancestral healing,
Yeah.
and thanks God he was willing to even talk to me. Yeah, poor thing. But yeah, he was traumatized about. Yeah, of course he was traumatized of having to leave his ancestral home and move to the
Oh,
US,
yeah.
which again became his home, but it's never the same.
No. Yeah, I was just, all the connections really were kind of stunning, just how that even ended up in my hands.
Yeah, so that's when
And
I then
then
thought,
how,
this is no coincidence.
yeah, and then connecting with you to
Yeah,
move him on.
you must
It's
have
amazing
felt
how that
the
works.
frequency of your ancestry in there, and probably somebody guided you to pick this one up so that this particular spirit could be helped.
Yes, I think that's what most likely happened.
All of it, I mean, I could never have imagined when your email came in that this is the story that would come out of this. Super
Yes.
emotional. Even when I was doing the clearing with him and talking to him, I was also just having tears because it was just really poignant, all of it.
Yes, I would imagine you were feeling even what
Yeah.
you probably saw it or felt it, and that was even more so. And then it was extraordinary when you mentioned, higher selves coming in to help him also. That was
Yeah,
pretty pretty stunning. So a
absolutely.
lot of energies came together
Yeah,
to really
they
help
did.
this
It was
man.
incredible. And yeah, you did such a fantastic job with the message. I didn't even ask you to provide a message, but you channeled just the exact thing that he
Yeah.
needed to hear.
Oh, good.
That was beautiful. And then you started playing music on the Victrola, so it's in your home still. You haven't sold it.
Yes, I still have it. It took me a couple weeks to even go near it
Yeah.
because I kind of had a negative association after
Yeah.
all of that. But then, oh, and something else that was interesting is I have a favorite singer from that
Mm.
era, and I had ordered some albums through
Mhm.
eBay. There were like 12 albums of this particular singer. So I was really excited to get them. And the package had gone missing.
What?
And yeah, it had gone missing. And so I had to contact the post office, where is it? I really want these albums. Can you please locate it? And so I guess they went and did their thing. And on the day that you helped this man cross over to the light,
Mhm. Mm.
that package was delivered. The post office
Oh,
never told me that it was coming. They never followed up. I had no inclination whatsoever. And when
wow.
I that day, boom, there were the albums. And so I took it as like a sign, like of
Yes.
him
It's
perhaps
like he
saying,
approved. You can
here,
use it now. You can,
yes,
yeah. Oh, wow.
yes.
That's so beautiful. I didn't know
So
that.
that was incredible. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
because I will be honest, I had some anger when this was going on,
Yeah.
towards the spirits. I felt, who are you to terrorize me like this?
Mm.
I'm taking good care of this. So a lot of emotions I think came up, but in the end, it was about understanding his story, and as I learned more about
Yeah.
him, and so I wanted him to know that I understand that you can attach things. For me, I have a strawberry shortcake dollhouse that is just from my childhood that I still
Mhm.
have. I've attached so much emotion to it that I feel like if anything ever happened to it or someone else took it, I'd probably just be in the same situation as
Yeah, of
he.
course.
It's mine. It has a lot of meaning to me. So I definitely understand that, having
Yeah,
that one item
totally.
that just
Mm.
means so much to you. So
Yeah,
it's healing.
absolutely. Yeah, exactly. It was
Yeah,
his healing, his way of dealing
it was
with
his healing.
his trauma.
So that
Yeah.
when I received those albums, I took that as the green light that
Mm.
we're good.
Wow. I'd also be curious to hear how your parents were dealing with you growing up as a child and then being able to see spirit. How did they react to all of that?
I never really told them.
Okay.
I kind of kept it hush hush. My dad is a psychologist. I wasn't sure, even though he grew up actually in a metaphysical family, so it would have been accepted. But I think they've always known that I was a little bit different, very intuitive. My mom, I don't think really knows how to necessarily process all of that. So she'll ask me questions, but she does have a little bit of fear behind
Yeah.
it, fear of the unknown.
Mm.
Sometimes she'll say, well, don't put a spell on me or anything. I'm
Yeah,
like, well, no, I wouldn't do
I
that.
might.
You never know.
Yeah.
Shape up. No. So yeah, she doesn't really know what to make of it. And
Mhm.
my dad, I think, he's a Pisces, so he's very, empathic in his own right.
Wow, my dear. I think we covered everything, but is there anything I forgot to ask or anything you still want to share about anything?
I think we did cover everything. Yeah, I just want to share again that I'm
Hmm.
so grateful to you
Oh,
for sharing your gifts and for doing this space clearing, because I really was at a loss. I didn't really know how to handle this
oh
spirit. So I
gosh.
appreciate
Yeah.
you doing that and helping this gentleman step into the light, because I think
Yeah, I
he
thank
needed
you
it. It's been a
for,
long
yeah,
time.
thank you for trusting me with that and connecting over from the US,
Yes,
super
definitely.
special. And also just to connect and get to know you and your ancestral story was also special to me. So yeah, and it's a vulnerable thing to share. So I'm deeply grateful, not just that you shared with me, but with the audience here.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my dear. So we're gonna conclude this episode. Thank you everyone for listening in, and I'll come back with a new episode soon.